Hey, welcome! In this video, I'm super excited to be sharing with you 55 core principles for living an excellent life. If you can understand and embody these 55 principles, then you're going to become a rare and valuable human being who lives a profound life that is not commonly seen in today's day and age. I remember when I was 16 years old, I was living a very mediocre life where I was just chasing entertainment. I just play video games all day, smoke weed, watch porn, eat junk food. I wasn't very proactive about the way I was living. I was basically just living for the next hit of stimulation. And this is because nobody really taught me what are the principles for living excellently. I didn't know any of this stuff. I just went to school. My teachers would teach me about how Jesus is the Son of God and we had to go to church or else we were going to go to hell. There wasn't really much talk about success, the principles of effective living, personal development, self-actualization. I didn't know any of this stuff existed at all. And consequently, my life was not very satisfying. I felt like I wasn't living up to my full potential. I felt like my life was just wasting away. That was until I had basically an existential crisis. I remember I was sitting in my room at 3 in the morning playing League of Legends, which is what I would do for years, wasted thousands of hours playing that. I was sitting in my room at 3 in the morning, and all of a sudden, I think I was listening to Pink Floyd, and they were talking about how life is short, and you better not waste your time. There's the song Time. Life is short, don't waste your time, because next thing you know, you're going to be 6 feet deep in the floor. And I remember listening to these lyrics and playing video games at 3 in the morning. I was playing for a week straight. This kind of triggered something deep within me where all at once I realized that if I kept living my life in the way that I was up until that point, I would have huge regrets for when I'm on my deathbed. And if I just lived just chasing pleasure, being mediocre, then I would have huge regrets at the end of my life. And this was scary for me. I was literally started crying. I remember shutting my computer off, going underneath my covers in my bed and just crying myself to sleep. And at that point, I vowed that I would do whatever it took to live an awesome life, to actually develop myself. That was when I discovered personal development. I started learning about meditation, and I realized that life is a very complicated thing. There's a lot to know about living an excellent life. It's not obvious. There's many different principles and schools of thought, philosophies, different teachers you need to study from so that you can build an accurate picture, an accurate mental model of how to actually live well. So the first step to living well is actually just understanding what do the leading edge thinkers and sages and mystics, what do they have to say about excellent living? For thousands of years, people have been writing down their philosophies of life into books, recording them on video, posting them on the internet. That hasn't been happening for thousands of years, but the books have been being written for thousands of years. And these awakened human beings, many humans are just amazing. They've lived long and full lives, full of wisdom and learnings, and they've condensed all of their deep lessons to help you live excellently. They've condensed those lessons and they've put them into a book form. And it's your job, if you want to align your life to the principles of effective living, you need to study a lot. So I was reading Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the best personal development books ever written. He said, if you want to live an effective life, then you need to understand the principles of life, which you can only understand by studying hundreds of diverse perspectives. Stephen Covey said in order to write that book, which went on to being one of the top-selling books of all time for personal development, he said he literally needed to study over 200 different personal development teachers, all of the success literature that has been written in the West since the late 1700s. He said for his whole life he just studied all of that wisdom and organized it in his mind. So, what is a principle? What's the difference between Adam's opinion, right? Because I could come up here and just share with you, like, I'm saying I'm going to share with you 55 core principles for living excellently, but, how do you know that these principles are even good? Is this just like my opinion? Did I just make this up? Did I just sit down one day and think about, what does Adam think the best way to live is? And then just kind of wrote it down, just pulled this stuff out of my ass? Or where did I get this information from? So a principle is something that you can derive for yourself by first and foremost studying hundreds of diverse perspectives, studying success, studying business, studying relationships, studying self-actualization, creativity, spirituality, mysticism, studying history, science, all the different fields of life, gathering the information, and then looking, what are the common threads? What do all of these perspectives have in common? So for example, if you wanted to understand deeply what is spirituality, what is the core of all the different religions? Many people, they just are born, they believe in one religion for their entire life, and they'll argue with you if you disagree with them. These people don't really understand the core essence of spirituality because they're just locked into one perspective. If you wanted to understand spirituality, you would need to study every religion, all the different religions. Buddhism, Hinduism, Japanese Shinto, the Aztec religions, Christianity, Jainism, Judaism, etc. Study all the religions. Once you kind of get this bird's eye view, you can start to ask yourself, what are the common threads? Sure, these religions on the surface disagree about many things, but deep down, there's actually a lot of things they agree on. So if you study 20 different religions and you ask yourself, sure, they disagree in some areas, but what are those areas where all of them agree? Now you've found a principle, a deep principle. And I've discovered 55 of them, not just from religions, but from success and from life in general, from personal development teachers, after studying for 5 or 6 years very seriously, because I realized I need to understand life if I want to live an excellent life. If I want my life to go well, I need to understand how it works. I've discovered 55 core principles for living an excellent life, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. All right? So again, a principle is something very core. It's very fundamental. All right? It's not just a rule. It's not just Adam's opinion. This is something that you can discover for yourself. Don't just believe what I say here in this video. Use this as a guideline and actually test what I'm saying in your own experience. So principles don't just come from studying other people. You need to study all kinds of other people, derive where are they overlapping, right? Like when a GPS is trying to find your location, they triangulate your location. What happens is your phone or your GPS connects to 3 different satellites. It doesn't just connect to one satellite. Your phone connects to 3 different satellites, and from those 3 signals, you get a triangulated location. In the same way, you can triangulate the truth by studying many different perspectives. And then you actually have to test this in your own life, in your own direct experience. All right, so let's get into the 55 principles. The first core principle for living an effective life, and these aren't in any particular order. I just kind of listed them all out that over the last few years. The first core principle for living an amazing life, very important to understand, is that quick fixes will not work. Many people have this mentality in their life where if they have a problem in their relationship or in their business, then they want to look for what's the quickest and easiest way to solve this problem. It's almost like, let's say your roof in your house has a leak. And the reason why the roof has a leak is because of something, the way your house is actually constructed. The roof is not built in the right way, and that is what causes it to be defective. That's why it has a leak. So you call over a house inspector, you ask him, hey, why is my roof leaking? He says, your roof wasn't built properly. We're going to need to tear off your entire roof, and we're going to need to rebuild it from scratch. And you say to him, well, I don't really want to do that. That's going to be expensive. That's going to be time consuming. Can't we just patch up that leak? Can't we just put a Band-Aid over it? I'd just rather fix it quickly and be on to the next thing. I don't want to have to tear off my entire roof. The house inspector says no, because if you just put a Band-Aid over this leak, then eventually the Band-Aid's going to fall off and then it's going to keep leaking. And you're going to have to always put this bucket to catch the dropping water, the bucket that catches the water, and you're going to always have to worry about changing the bucket. Every single day you're going to have to change the bucket because it's going to fill up with water, you're going to have to pour it out, put it back. It's going to drain your energy. It's going to be time consuming. And plus, it's just going to damage your house. See, most people, when they want to fix their life, they don't want to go to the root foundation. If you want to fix your relationship, for example, you need to really go right into the core of your deep beliefs about relationships, about yourself. You can't just fix your relationship. You need to tear off the entire roof of your house, and you need to actually restructure the entire foundation of your life. What you think life is, how you think relationships work, how you think life works, your meditation, your habits. You can't just fix your relationships without bringing the rest of the universe along for the ride. So many people, they have a relationship problem. They just want to put a Band-Aid over it. What's the easiest, most painless way to fix this problem? Oh, I don't have enough dates? Maybe I should just download an app on my phone and swipe right until I have more dates. Or maybe I should get plastic surgery on my face so that people are attracted to me. Quick fixes never ever work, because at the end of the day, you need to solve the core problem in your life. You need to solve the foundation. If you tear off the roof of your house and actually rebuild the roof properly, you'll never have to worry about a leak ever again. And sure, it might cost you money and energy in the beginning, but for the next 20 or 30 years, you'll never have to worry about your roof ever again. You fixed it. You solved the problem because you actually went to the foundation, the core. Whereas if you don't want to do that, if you're lazy, say, I'll just put a Band-Aid over it, I'll worry about it another time. Now for the next 20 or 30 years, you're constantly going to have to change the bucket to catch the water. that's actually going to end up costing you more energy and more money long term than it would have costed you just to actually fix the problem properly the first time. See, many people, they want to make more money in their life, for example, and they just want a quick fix. So how can I just win the lottery? Or what's the hot new trend, the new business idea? How can I just buy the new Bitcoin, the new cryptocurrency, the new NFTs, so that I can just make a lot of money without actually having to learn the principles of effective business? So when you have that attitude, yeah, you might even make some money short term, but long term, you still are going to be struggling. Because a principle, once you learn the principles of effective business, that might take you 3 or 4 years to learn. That might take you a lot of trial and error and sweat and tears. But the beauty of that is that once you learn the principles, you're never going to go hungry ever again. You never have to worry about it. For example, once I learned meditation, right? Once I learned how to actually manage my emotions, for the rest of my life now, I'm going to have effective emotional management skills. Think about how much dividends that's going to pay me in the future. All right, guys, I can't spend the whole time on number 1. We have 55 core principles, okay? So I'm going to do my best to introduce them. I can't go deep into every single one, but we're going to give you like a nice bird's eye view and overview. All right? Principle number 2, developing yourself is the most important thing to do in your life. Developing yourself. See, since you are at the center of your entire life, every moment you find yourself in for this short human lifetime, you are the common denominator. You're always there. Regardless of where you are in the world, you're there, right? Wherever you go, there you are. So if you can develop and work on yourself, your psychology, your own personal development, you're technically working on your entire life. That's going to pay you long-term dividends. Yourself is what's most important. See, nowadays, I was studying a lot of law of attraction, and they tell you, right, if you want to achieve success in your life, you need to work on your self-image. You need to shift your identity. Yeah, that's true, but it's not just about shifting the way you see yourself. It's about actually becoming the successful version of yourself. So if you want to succeed in business, how can you become the version of yourself who is able to succeed in business? If you want to have a better relationship, how can you become the more attractive version of yourself? How can you develop yourself into that version? So working on yourself is the key to all success in every single area of your life. And that's what this whole video is about. Principle number 3, extremely important, is to have a vision for your life. Have a life purpose. What's the purpose of your life? How are you going to impact the world? How are you going to help humanity? It's not enough just to go to work, make some money, come home, watch Netflix, be comfortable, and do the same thing over and over again. That's going to lead you to be depressed because you're not solving your self-actualization needs. Self-actualization needs are saying you need to make the most of yourself. It's not enough just to get by. You need to actually strive to actualize your native gifts and talents and latent potentials. So having a vision for your life, that's like being able to select a target. Once you select a target, then you're going to know where you want to go. When I coach clients, the first thing we talk about is, okay, what's your goal? Where do you want to be next year? Or in 5 years? Even in 10 years? Where do you want to be? What are you shooting for? How do you want to impact the world? How do you want to share your love and your gifts with the universe, with other people? Specifically, how? Right? So I have a whole course that teaches you how to cultivate your vision to create a plan to actually achieve it. You can check the description for that. I've spoken about a lot in other videos. The next principle is the principle of lifelong learning. If you want to live an excellent life, you just need to understand conceptually first, how does life work? You see, I think a lot of people overestimate how smart they are when it comes to actually understanding life. I think a lot of people overestimate, they overestimate their own understanding, or they just underestimate the complexity of reality. What, you think reality is easy to understand? You think like you basically got the gist of it? Most people, we go to school for 12, 16, sometimes even 20 years. We go to school. So we think because we went to school, now, we have some kind of deep foundational understanding of the entire universe. We think we know what life is. What I've discovered, which was a very rude awakening for me when I was 16 or 17 years old and I was first getting into this stuff, what I discovered is not only do I not understand how relationships, business, history, politics, science, not only do I not understand how any of this stuff works at all, but I don't even understand what reality is, what existence is. I don't even know what I am, what it means to be alive. I literally know nothing at all. So in order to succeed in life, you need to, get cracking with the books, right? So the best way to learn, right? Mahatma Gandhi said, live as if you were to die tomorrow, learn as if you were to live forever, right? Lifelong learning. The best way to learn is to read books, to listen to teachers online on YouTube. I listen to personal development teachers. One of my favorite is Leo from actualize.org. He's made hundreds of hours of personal development content, right? I just spent 3-4 years just listening to that content 2 or 3 hours a day. And not just Leo, but all the other personal development teachers as well. Eben Pagan, I can't even think of them off the top of my head. Just tons of other teachers, books, studying, researching. So I spent a few years doing that before I even started making videos. So sometimes I overestimate my audience. Not to be rude, guys, but sometimes I overestimate, when I talk about psychedelics, for example, I say, yeah, if you do psychedelics like this, then you'll have an amazing experience. But I sometimes I forget that some people have never read one single book in their entire life. Some people have never even heard of meditation. So if you're that kind of person, you should stay far away from psychedelics. You're not ready yet. In the past, I've overestimated people's development. I spent 5-6 years just reading hundreds of books, listening to thousands of hours of lectures and podcasts. So I assume that people, kind of are like me, but they're not. They're not there. They're at level 1, stage 1. And that's okay. I'm not judging you or criticizing you. I'm just want to be accurate. I want to, I don't want to teach a grade 3 person who's in the 3rd grade. I don't want to teach them advanced calculus because they won't know what to do with it. They're going to misunderstand it. All right. So get learning. All right. Some great topics to learn about. I've covered them a bit. Success and productivity, money management, business, marketing, health and diet, creativity, life purpose, history, politics, science, metaphysics, philosophy, epistemology. See, just off the top of my head, these are some topics you need to read at least one book about for each one of these topics. And realistically, if you read 1 or 2 books a month and you do that long term, that's going to compound, and that's going to create long-term exponential growth in your life. All right? Okay, so the fifth principle is to have an open mind and not to cling to one particular perspective. Don't be arrogant when it comes to youth. Like, many people are arrogant. They think they already know how reality works. They already know how politics work. They already know the best way to deal with social injustices. I've noticed the more ignorant you are, the more arrogant you are about you being right. And I've definitely fallen into this trap myself in my life. But I notice if you are really well educated, you read all kinds of books like we just said, then in general you have more humility about what you do understand and what you don't understand. So in general, have an open mind. Assume that you don't know anything. Like Socrates, when he went to the Oracle of Delphi, he asked the Oracle, he asked the Oracle a question, and the Oracle gave Socrates a prophecy. The Oracle said, "There is no man in Greece who is wiser than Socrates." When Socrates heard that, he said, "What? There's no way that I'm the wisest man. There must be someone wiser than me." So he went around Greece, even around Europe, asking people that claimed to be the wisest, asking them questions, picking their brain, trying to see if they actually are as wise as they say they are. And after doing that, Socrates discovered that a lot of these so-called teachers, they're actually a lot less wise than they say that they are. They claim to know everything about the universe, but once Socrates just started asking them a couple questions, their whole metaphysics would just crumble. So after that journey, Socrates eventually came to the conclusion, okay, maybe I am the wisest man in Greece, because at least I'm willing to admit to myself that I don't know certain things. So have an open mind, admit that you don't know stuff, and then there's another trap that happens where people say, "Oh, I don't know the secrets of the universe. I don't know, what reality is," right? So I'm being humble. But you can take that too far to say, "I don't know, and it's impossible to know. I can't know. Not even I don't know, but I can't know." We can't know what the universe is, or what existence is, or the most effective political system, or the foundations of science. We can't know that. That's impossible. The truth of spirituality, of enlightenment, I don't know. You see, it's one thing to have an open mind, right? To have a truly open mind, you need to understand that you don't even know if it's possible to know or not. So you have to go find out. You can't just say, "Oh, I don't know what reality is," and then say, "Oh, but I can't know, so I'm just going to play video games all day." A truly open mind says, "I don't know what reality is, and what if it's possible to know, but I'm just missing out? What if I'm ignorant? What if there's teachers that actually know the secrets of the universe and I can just go ask them and they'll actually tell me? What if that's possible?" It is. But don't take my word for it. See for yourself. All right, number 6. The next principle is to focus on your awareness, your meditation skills, and raising your consciousness. Your consciousness and the quality of your awareness, this is really the key determinant of your success in life. This is the key. This is the core. Because your awareness and your consciousness is the common denominator. It is what reality is made of. Reality is made of consciousness. So if you can hone and develop your own consciousness through meditation, psychedelics, yoga, breath work, all these exercises can improve the quality of your consciousness, you'll improve the quality of your entire life. The next principle is exercise and diet. Learn how to exercise effectively. Learn how to exercise in a way where you're not doing it robotically, where you're just going to the gym and just lifting weights in a robotic, unconscious way. Learn how to actually listen to your body and to move your body in a way that your body wants to be moved in. With exercise, I recommend to exercise consciously. Yoga, you can still lift weights, but in a more conscious way, where you're not distracted, but you're actually there present with the weights. Exercise is key. Diet, there's a lot to learn there, but pretty much just eat more natural foods. Don't eat foods that come in a box or that come in a tube or a wrapper. In general, it's best to eat non-processed foods, and that's something you're going to have to explore because your diet and your exercise are fundamental to your happiness as a human. Next, experiment, test, and learn by doing. Just take action. Sometimes in life, it's very easy to get stuck in paralysis by analysis. Something that happens to me where, yeah, sure, I'm studying all these perspectives, but sometimes you can overstudy or you can get trapped in your mind, and the best way to break out of that is to actually just take action. Actually just, record a video, just upload it to YouTube. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just, you actually sometimes get the best lessons in life just by doing the thing. This is learning from your experience. So I'm not saying don't learn, don't underestimate the value of learning, but you need to actually take action. The next principle is to have a genuine desire to impact other people. When you realize that all of reality is one, and you realize that in order to ultimately be happy, you need to connect yourself to life, connect yourself to the oneness of life, you realize that the more I desire to impact other people, to help the world, the more I am actually in alignment with the highest truth, which is oneness. I am other people. So there's a quote that I'm trying to remember right now, but it's like this is what it is. When you have a genuine desire to help the whole, then the whole universe helps you, conspires with you. So the higher and loftier your vision is, for example, one thing I want to do in my lifetime is to reform the education system. Right? That's something that's a worthwhile goal, something I want to do in my lifetime. And in order for me to do that, I first and foremost need to develop myself. I need to learn. I need to be extremely well educated. So when you strive to actually achieve something big, something bigger than yourself, not just like, I want to make $10,000 so that I can go party and travel, but how can I actually awaken all of humanity? How can I impact the entire well-being of the whole human race? When you have that kind of lofty vision, then the universe actually conspires with you. And that in that way, you're actually living the most satisfying life that you could possibly live. That's what self-actualization is about. You have all these unique gifts and talents. How can you put them to use for a higher purpose? And one of the ways you can do that is the next principle is to be creative. And what that means to be creative is to actually create something new. Don't react to the situations of your life. So, I don't have enough money, so in a reactive state, I'm going to go find some get-rich-quick scheme. Or I'm going to go get a job that I don't really want, but I have no money, so I'm reacting to life. Instead, how can you become a creator of your life? How can you pick what you want and then actually move towards it every single day? One of your strengths as a human is, in the Bible they say God made man in his image. And God is a creator. So since you are made in God's image, wink, wink, you actually are God, you are a creator. You create your life, whether you create it consciously or unconsciously. So most of your life has been created unconsciously because you don't even know that you're a creator. So you create unconsciously. You create misery and suffering because you don't know that you're the one creating it. But when you take responsibility for your life, which is the next principle, take 100% responsibility, realize that your life is your creation. You've created it. Whether that be you're failing in your business, you're failing in your health, you're failing in your relationships, you're sad and depressed. That's your responsibility. That's not the government's fault. That's not your parents' fault. That's not your girlfriend or your boyfriend's fault, or the economy's fault, or women's fault, men's fault. It's your fault. It's your fault, right? And that's okay. That's actually very empowering to realize that, because then you can take responsibility for changing your life. One of the ways you can frame self-actualization is the capacity to take on more and more responsibility. So once you take responsibility for your life, which has taken me years to do, and I'm still working on that, then you actually notice this ability to take on collective responsibility. So now not only is my life my responsibility, but the well-being of society is my responsibility. The state of the education system is my responsibility. The homeless people on the street is my responsibility. The whole universe is my responsibility. The next principle is to know yourself. Know who you are, just as a personality. First and foremost, what are your strengths? What's your personality type? One thing I've been addicted to studying is Myers-Briggs, the personality types. What's your type? Do you know whether you're naturally introverted or extroverted? Do you know whether you're naturally an intuitive person or a more sensory person? Do you know whether you're naturally more left-brained or more right-brained? Whether you're more creative or more structured? Do you know what your top strengths are, your top intelligences? Is it musical intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence, kinesthetic intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, mathematical, verbal, linguistic? What are your intelligences? What are your natural strengths? What are you good at? One of the best ways to find out is to study personality types, which I've made a whole video about. And just test. Just go find out who am I? What would make me the happiest? What are my top strengths? What do I value the most in life? What would make me the happiest, the most fulfilled? Know yourself. If you want to summarize all of philosophy, it's just know thyself. And what is philosophy? Philosophy, philo means to love. Sophia, the name means wisdom. So philosophy is the love of wisdom. So if you really love wisdom, the first principle is to know thyself. Who are you? First and foremost, as a personality, and secondly, who are you existentially as a being, which I made a whole video about called Who Are You? But what are you? Do you know what you are? Many people take this for granted. Say, oh, Adam, I know what I am. I'm a human being who lives on Earth. Well, yeah, sure, maybe. But I challenge that, actually. What if you're not that? What if you're something greater than that? The next principle is to master your basic needs, right? So goes back to there's no quick fixes. If you want to build a skyscraper, right? And you want to get to the 50th floor, that's where all the value and juice is, where you get the best view of life, right? Life, the most valuable things come from the higher needs, the self-actualization needs, you could think of it like the higher floors of the building. If your life is like a skyscraper and you're building the skyscraper, you want to build it as high as possible, because the higher you get, the more you can see of life, the better view you have. In order to build a great skyscraper, you need to focus on your foundation. You need to make sure your foundation, first of all, you select the right plot of land. If you try and build a skyscraper on the Sahara Desert, where it's just sand, it's not going to be structurally sound. So many people don't focus on their foundation in life. They don't focus on, how am I making money? What way am I how can I set myself up to profit and to make money in a way that's actually in alignment with my soul, my natural gifts and talents? Because I'm going to have to make money. I'm going to have to work 8 hours a day. Might as well make my work something I love. Same with relationships, right? You're going to need to have some kind of relationships in your life. You're not going to go live in a cave in the Himalayas. Even if you did, you'd be missing out on one of the most beautiful parts of life, which is just having deep relationships with people. Same with your health, right? So these are the basic needs. Master your basic needs. Because once you put a solid foundation into place, before they even start building a skyscraper, they need to dig first. You need to dig like 100 feet underground to put in the iron bars, or I don't know how skyscrapers are built, but they build a foundation. They dig really, really deep into the floor to serve as, they have to excavate it first. So in the same way in your life, many people, they haven't built their life consciously. It was just kind of glued together with spit and bubble gum and toothpicks. So your skyscraper might have 5 or 6 floors, but they're not structurally sound at all. So when I say, hey, you need to, you need to tear down your building, you goofed it. You can't keep building on top of floor 7, floor 8, floor 9, floor 10, because the first floors you put into place were put into place unconsciously. They're not working for you. It's going to collapse the whole skyscraper if you try and build on top of that. So first thing you need to do, demolish your life, demolish your skyscraper, break it down, deconstruct. How did I get to where I'm at now? What kind of beliefs do I have? Where did they come from? My childhood. Contemplate, question yourself. And then you actually have to go deeper into the floor. You have to excavate the ground. Many people, they just want to build higher. Higher. And then they look to their neighbor, they look to me, for example. I'm excavating, I'm digging down, going deeper, right? And that other person will laugh at you. Say, why are you digging down? Isn't the point of life to go up? But you say, don't worry about it, right? And then you dig down, you set a proper foundation for yourself. And then once you actually do decide to erect your skyscraper, you can erect it 50 floors higher than everybody else because you put your foundation into place, which is your basic needs. We'll talk about that more in another video. The next principle is to understand that other people are divine. Other people are literally you. So how you treat another person really determines whether or not you're conscious of the truth of oneness. That's why the golden rule in every single religion, every religion has this rule: treat others the way you would like to be treated. Why? Why should I do that? Why should I be nice to other people? The reason why is because they're you. In fact, treat other people as if they're divine, as if you're speaking to the actual creator of the universe. When you pass by someone on the street, normally what you do is you just see them, oh, it's just another person, whatever, and just walk by them. You judge them. It's like, oh, I don't like that person's shirt. Instead of that, what if you actually interacted with that person as if that's at the actual God, the actual creator of reality? With the respect and reverence you would bring to that interaction, bring that to every single person you speak to in your life. It's easier said than done, but that's the goal. Everyone's you, so act as such. The next principle is to be honest. Honesty is a very interesting concept because we resist being honest in many ways. We don't want to be exposed. We don't want to be open to criticism and judgment. So we lie to ourselves and to other people. But what I realize is that honesty is actually another word for transparency. And transparency is the actual true nature of reality. That's what awareness is. Awareness is completely empty. It's transparent. So when you are being honest and authentic, then you're actually aligning yourself to the true nature of reality, which is pure, unbiased awareness. I have a whole video about honesty. The next principle is to strive for excellence. Whether you're creating art or whether really anything you're doing in your life, strive to do that thing excellently. Because just in the pursuit of doing something excellently, you are setting yourself up to just enjoy life more. This is like challenging yourself, right? When you play a video game and it's on easy mode, sure, in the beginning it might be fun. Oh, wow, these enemies are so easy to kill. But eventually you're going to get bored of it. You're not actually learning. You're not actually growing. You're not actually pushing yourself. That's why the video game gets bored on easy mode, and then eventually you're going to turn it off. Even if you beat the whole game on easy mode, you're not that proud to tell your friends about it. Say, oh, I beat the whole game. They're going to say, well, what difficulty did you beat it on? Well, I beat it on easy. They're going to be like, who cares you beat it on easy? That doesn't prove anything. It's not meaningful. So when you strive for excellence, that really says a lot about who you are as a person. It's not really about what you achieve, but it's more about who you become in the process of achieving your goals. So when you strive for excellent goals and you want to do something excellently, then you become an excellent person and then you live an excellent life. See, this video is 55 principles for living excellently. If you strive for excellence in every area of your life, it only makes logical sense that you'd live an excellent life if you strive for excellence. I said that word too many times, it's starting to lose meaning. All right, the next principle is the principle of mastery. So what this means is, what area of your life, what domain are you committing to master? Is that speaking? Is that writing? Is that art, painting? Is that meditation? Is that interacting with other people? Is it coaching? Is it visual design, graphic design? What area of life are you mastering? And in order to master something, you need to invest 10,000 hours into practicing that domain. That requires deliberate practice, meaning you actually have to drill yourself. You have to push yourself, right? So it's not enough to put in 10,000 hours of, let's say you're practicing the guitar. If you want to master the guitar, you can't just play the same song over and over again for 10,000 hours. You'll master that song, but you won't master the guitar. In order to master the guitar, you need to drill yourself. You need to do finger picking drills. You need to do strumming drills. You need to do playing fast. You need to play slow and accurately. You need to you need to master every area of the guitar if you want to actually become a guitar master. And one of the keys for mastery is a bonus point. I didn't write this down, was focusing on the fundamentals in general in any area of your life will bring you more success than focusing on techniques or strategies or tactics. The fundamentals of any area are what's most important. It's like the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule means that when you it's like the 20% of things that give you 80% of the results. So when you're playing soccer, for example, you want to become great at soccer. Many people, right? I played a lot of soccer when I was a kid. It's very tempting to focus on the fancy tricks that you're going to do in the game, or to focus on what shoes am I wearing? Am I wearing the hottest shoes? Or am I going to do this fancy trick to deke out the defenders? See, that stuff really isn't what's most important. What's most important when playing soccer is the fundamentals. Passing, shooting, dribbling, having the right formation, attacking open space, doing set pieces properly, how to do the corner kick properly, or a free kick, right? So many people in their life, they focus on hacks or techniques or tactics, like, oh, when I do the corner kick, I'm going to fake the kick and then I'm going to pass it over here and then I'm going to, trick the defense and then we're going to get a goal. That's like a hack or a technique you're trying to use. Instead, don't worry about that. Focus on the fundamentals. Passing, shooting, dribbling. That's the key. It's not flashy, but it's the simple things that really get you the most results in life. That's true in business, relationships, etc. Next, the next principle is understanding, then acting. So before I said learn by doing, okay, but sometimes you need to understand what is it that I need to do. So if I want to start a business, first I need to spend, 6 months. I need to hire a coach. I need to buy a program. I need to read books. What is business? I don't even know what business is. How am I going to take action starting a successful business if I don't even know the first thing about it? So in general, success in life is you learn a skill or you learn something and then you implement it. And then you learn something again and then you implement it. Then you learn something and you implement it. And you just repeat that over and over again, thousands of times until eventually you're successful. See, it's the fundamentals. That's what we're talking about today. Many people, I ask you, what kind of videos you guys want to see from me? And many people say, oh, I want to learn about astral projection. I want to learn about aliens. See, that's like learning about, the fancy tricks or the fancy shoes in the soccer game. I want to learn about spiritual powers. Okay, maybe I'll talk about that in the future, but what you really need to know is the fundamentals. What actually is life and how does it work? What do I do? How do I live properly? What are the basics? Right? If you spend a lot of time learning the basics, you'll find that, these fancy tricks, you don't even need them. All right. The next principle is to have fun, to play, and to just enjoy the moment. To actually just enjoy life. And as part of, I'm going to very playfully right now check my camera battery to see what's going on. All right, we're going to need to change the camera battery in 1 second. But before I do that, I want to just talk about playfulness, having fun. When you play in your life, you actually enjoy the moment. You don't take everything so seriously. You'll find that you're actually just living a much better life. When you take life seriously, what happens is there's a lot of self-sabotage that happens. So there's this weird paradox where on one hand, it's important to take your life seriously, right? You need to study, learn, meditate, grow yourself, take, your growth seriously. But then on the other hand, don't take it so seriously. Just play, enjoy the moment, have fun, relax. Because when you're so focused on the goal, you forget about the journey. So, how can you be more playful? How can you, go dance in public? Joke around. Don't be such a stickler. All right. The Zen masters say once you achieve the highest enlightenment, the only thing left to do is to play. So remember, don't put off enjoying the moment until finally you're successful in the future. Enjoy the moment now, and you'll find that actually helps you and aids you on your journey if you have fun for the ride. All right, I'm going to change my battery, and I'll be back with the rest of the principles. Don't go anywhere. All right, I'm back. Let's continue with the rest of the principles. So the next principle for living an excellent life is realizing that everything is spiritual. So when I first began my spiritual journey, this always happens when the human being first discovers spirituality in spiral dynamics stage green in general. When you discover spirituality, what happens in your mind is you split reality into two parts. You say, this thing here is not spiritual, and then this thing here is spiritual. So you split reality into two. The spiritual stuff, meditation, lighting incense, reading books, going on meditation retreats, loving your neighbor. This is the spiritual stuff on one side, but then the other side is the non-spiritual stuff, like, hurting other people, polluting the environment, doing your taxes, washing the dishes. That stuff isn't spiritual. That stuff's just, that's just the mundane, ordinary stuff. But what I realized after, going deeper into spirituality, first what happens is you need to separate, okay, what's the difference between spirituality and mundane, ordinary stuff? But as you develop, you realize, oh, there is no difference. The ordinary, mundane life is spiritual. Washing the dishes is one of the most spiritual experiences that you can have. Doing your taxes, talking to your mother-in-law, doing, marketing for your business. That's spiritual stuff. So sometimes I make videos about marketing, and I can tell, some people don't really want to hear that from me or as much marketing stuff. People are more interested in talk about spiritual stuff, Adam. Talk about metaphysics and reality, right? And awesome, I will talk about that stuff. I love talking about that stuff. But, don't forget, marketing is a spiritual thing, right? Starting a business, that's one of the most spiritually challenging things you can do. Anyone can be enlightened sitting in a cave, but can you take that enlightenment into the world and embody it when you're talking to your mother-in-law, or when you're doing your taxes, or when you're in an argument with your siblings? So everything in life is spiritual. There's no difference between spiritual stuff and non-spiritual stuff. I'll talk about this more in another video, but Chögyam Trungpa, in his book Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, he says it's actually a very egotistical thing to do to put spirituality on a pedestal, thinking that spirituality is something extraordinary. It's something important, something rare and valuable. That's actually the ego that does that. He says true spirituality is connecting to the ordinary, connecting to the insignificant, realizing that spirituality is not important at all because the whole universe is spiritual. All right. So that principle is everything is spiritual. The next principle is Your direct experience is king. What that means is that if you want to gain a deeper understanding of really anything, life in general, you're going to need to connect to your direct experience. This experience here, that's in front of your eyes, that's actually present in the moment, not your thoughts and ideas. It's very easy to get lost in philosophies, debating ideas. What is reality? Oh, and then, if you talk to someone, what is reality? Immediately, their first thing they do is they go right into their mind. And they give you theories and ideas. Oh, I read this book that said reality is a hologram. Oh, reality. Oh, we don't know what reality is. See, you're in your head. If you want to know what reality is, here it is. This is what it is. This is reality. It's in your direct experience. It's not a word or a concept or an idea. It's actually present. It's here. It's imminent. Here it is. The kingdom of heaven is in your midst. People won't say, oh, look, there it is over there, the kingdom of heaven. No. Enlightenment, the true nature of reality, the truth is here. It's in your direct experience. So doing practices like mindfulness meditation that connect you deeply to your experience, that's why they're so valuable, because they align you with the truth. The next principle is to question everything. This is something that I'm naturally very good at. My mom used to tell me that whenever she would ask me to do anything, I would ask her 100 reasons. Explain to me why. Why should I do this? What is that thing? What's that? What's that? So question everything means don't take anything for granted. Don't assume that your understanding of reality is valid, or that it's good, even good, or grounded in any way. Assume your understanding of reality is garbage. It's trash. It's been absorbed blindly, unconsciously from culture. And culture has a notorious track record of being full of shit. Right? If you look at, the Dark Ages, where human beings collectively we do a very bad job of understanding reality. We used to think that that the sun revolved around the earth. We used to put leeches on people's bodies to cure them of sickness, right? So human beings have notoriously been wrong about many, many, many things. And your belief system, right, what you actually think is true about reality, that has been absorbed blindly from your culture. When you're 4 or 5 years old and you're still making sense of what reality is, your brain is like a sponge. It just absorbs info. You don't question what you think. Many people think that their worldview is logical and fact-based. Your worldview is not logical or fact-based at all. It's actually emotional. It's based on what you feel like is true, what you were told when you were 4 or 5 years old. Many people give themselves a lot more credit than they deserve when they say that their worldview is based on facts and logic, because you don't actually realize that facts and logic are relative, and that there's different kinds of logics, right? So logically, when I was in grade 5, when I was maybe 11 years old, logically I thought that astrology, that makes no sense. Astrology is just hocus pocus nonsense for people who aren't as logical as me. But as I got older, as I developed psychologically, when I was maybe 18 years old, I just started getting interested in astrology. It's an ancient science of archetypes and symbols and universal energies. So when I started reading about astrology, I realized, okay, astrology may not be literally true. And sure, many people, are full of shit when they talk about astrological predictions, but there is some truth there. It actually is very valid. And the point is, now my logic has actually included and incorporated astrology and, hundreds of other things, right? When I was 11 years old and I thought I was very logical and fact-minded, very scientific, I thought that levitation was impossible, or it's impossible to have to cure somebody's illness with a miracle like Jesus did in the Bible. I thought that was impossible. But as I developed my thinking, as I studied more perspectives, I realized that, oh wait, maybe it is possible to cure somebody's illness just with your hands, just by touching them. Many people might think that, oh, I'm not very logical for saying something like that. But my point is that there's different kinds of logic. It makes perfect logical sense to me why it is possible to cure somebody's illness in some cases just by touching them with your hand and by emitting a certain energy of consciousness. Actually, you can heal somebody's body just with your hands. Sometimes it's possible. Granted, it's probably not an effective, medical strategy, right? There's a lot of medicine that's more effective, but sometimes you can actually heal somebody's disease with your hands. A lot of diseases are caused by energetic blockages in the body. So if you can, transmit energy into somebody's body and free up their blockages, you could cure the root cause of their illness, right? That makes logical sense to me when you realize reality isn't physical and material, but you realize it's actually made of consciousness, vibration, and energy. Then things that didn't make sense in the past start to make sense. This is what's called a paradigm shift. The next principle is to self-reflect by using a journal. So if you want to live excellently, I highly recommend spending some time every day just writing about how you feel. What's on your mind? What's bothering you? What are your plans? What are your goals? What's your strategy to achieve them? Self-reflection is obviously a giant key for living an excellent life. And you're going to need to do it without a journal. And in a journal, self-reflection, I obviously need to make a whole video about it. It's a giant topic. It's basically just asking yourself, what's going on? What am I doing? Am I right? Am I being deluded? You're like watching yourself, seeing what's going on in my mind and in my body. What am I doing? You have to observe yourself. You have to reflect on yourself. And the next principle is to love yourself. So when you reflect and observe yourself, we get very tempted to judge and criticize ourselves and to shame and guilt ourselves. Maybe you are journaling, you say you feel depressed. I feel really depressed and I don't know why. You're writing it in your journal. And then naturally what we do is we judge ourselves. Say, I shouldn't feel depressed. I'm bad for feeling this way. I've realized that a much more effective way to live is just to love yourself unconditionally, like a mother loves her newborn child. The mother doesn't judge the child for crying. She just accepts it and gives it love and embrace. And you need to basically be your own mother in that sense, to be unconditionally loving with yourself. So no need to be so hard on yourself. It's one thing to push yourself because you love yourself, right? Kind of like there's the difference between the father energy and the mother energy, right? The father, the masculine compassion, is hard on you because he loves you. He pushes you to be strong, right? So you can do that to yourself. Push yourself because you love yourself. But then on the other hand, the mother energy just loves you unconditionally and gives you hugs and kisses regardless of how you're acting or what you're being. So you need to kind of balance this masculine compassion for yourself and this feminine compassion for yourself, and combine these two together to love yourself, accept yourself as you are, and also while at the same time pushing yourself and striving to be better because you love yourself. So This is kind of a paradox, but life is paradoxical, which I'm going to add in right now as another principle. Life is paradoxical. Because reality is one and it's all interconnected, it's not so black and white. People ask me, well, is reality matter or is it energy? What's the answer? It can only be one. Is it matter or is it energy? But what we've discovered with the breakthroughs of relativity with Einstein, we saw that, it's actually possible for reality to be both matter and energy. And it actually can't be any other way. The reason why reality is paradoxical is because you've basically separated reality into two different categories. Spirituality on this side and mundane, ordinary stuff on this side. So Adam, when you say washing the dishes is spiritual, that's a paradox. That makes no sense. Well, no, it's actually not a paradox. The reason why it seems like a paradox is because you've split up reality in the first place. That separation between spirituality and mundane, ordinary reality, that separation wasn't there in the first place. You put it there. So when you realize that these two things are actually one, that seems paradoxical. So in the last example, I say, you have to love and accept yourself unconditionally, but you also have to push yourself at the same time. You might say, that's a paradox. Aren't you just doing personal development because you don't love and accept yourself the way you are? I've literally seen that comment. So you just don't understand what shit is, basically. You don't understand the reason why you do personal development and push yourself is because you love yourself. And you can accept yourself as you are and push yourself at the same time. And ultimately, there's no difference. Why don't you accept the part of yourself that wants to grow, that wants to develop? So people say, if you're trying to grow yourself, then you're just not accepting yourself. Why don't you? But then I say, why don't you accept the part of yourself that naturally wants to grow? Right? So that's a paradox. The next principle is you need to understand human psychology and how it works. Because human psychology is what creates basically your entire human life. It all boils down to your psychology. So learning about things like shadow work, especially developmental psychology, which is spiral dynamics, ego development theory. A lot of Ken Wilber's work talks a lot about developmental psychology. It's very important to understand the stages of human development. You need to actually know how the stages that a human being goes through from when they're born to when they're 5 years old, when they're 10 years old, when they're 15, 20. You need to actually understand what are the predictable stages that the human being goes through on its way to psychological maturity. Otherwise, reality is going to make no sense to you. You're not going to know why people act in seemingly crazy ways. Somebody like, Putin, he's going to invade Ukraine, and you're not going to know why. You're just going to think he's evil or that he's a bad person. Now, I don't agree with that decision, obviously. Obviously, he's being very greedy. But the reason why is because Putin is in a certain stage of psychological development in stage red and blue. And when you're actually embodying that stage of development, you act, invading another country, that's a completely normal thing to do when you're at that level. In the same way, if a 6-year-old child punches another 6-year-old child in the head, that's a completely normal thing to do if you're 6 years old, right? You don't really have that good emotional management. You don't have a more mature psyche to realize, maybe I shouldn't punch someone in the head. You just do it impulsively. And in the same way, most of the world is in stage purple, red, and blue. So when ISIS, for example, is like, beheading people, you might think, wow, they're evil. They're bad. not that they're evil, it's just that that's how human beings behave when they're in a lower stage of human development. That's if you study history, right? You study developmental psychology, you see, these people aren't evil or bad or crazy or deluded. They may be all of those things, but the reason why they're those things is not because there's something wrong with them, but because they're actually just at that stage of development. They'd be like judging a little kid for crying. That's what little kids do. They cry. So if you want to lead other people, you want to lead yourself and grow yourself, you need to understand human psychology, and I've talked about it a lot in past videos. All right, the next principle is to understand that psychedelics are important and that they will play a very instrumental role for raising human consciousness. However, you can't just do them blindly. You need to actually be ripe. You need to be mature. You need to be ready to do them. You need to build some kind of foundation for yourself with your diet, with your exercise, with your personal development, with your learning and your psychological understanding. If you watch an entire video like this, I know it's a long video, but if you watch a video like this and then you go do some psychedelics, you'll find it's a completely 100% different trip than if you've never watched any personal development or spirituality content at all, ever. You've never read a book in your whole life. You're blind, right? Like I was when I was 16 years old. I was just, playing video games all day. I didn't know any better. And then if I went to go do psychedelics, I would have probably had a panic attack because I just don't know what to expect from spiritual growth, from raised consciousness, right? Learning and building your foundation is like studying the map of the territory before you actually go and explore the territory, right? If you take a psychedelic, it's like going into a new land. First, before you go, just read the map, just study. So, okay, so that when you pass by the river, you recognize it. Say, oh, this is the river that I saw on the map. When you pass by a mountain, you say, okay, there's the mountain, right? In the same way, when I talk about things like, oh, everybody's you, right? Love everybody equally. If you've never heard any spirituality before in your whole life, you're going to do psychedelics, you're going to take some mushrooms, you're going to realize your girlfriend is you, and then you're going to have a panic attack because you're not going to have any infrastructure in place in your mind to actually interpret this spiritual experience. Or you're going to have a vision of Jesus Christ, and then you're going to worship Jesus and become an ideological zealot for Jesus. Just thinking that, Jesus is the one and only truth. I saw with my own eyes on psychedelics. I know Christianity is the only right religion. See, if you don't actually listen to personal development content like my other video where I talk about how all religions are saying the same thing, then you're not going to be able to interpret your spiritual experience properly, right? So psychedelics are extremely, extremely important for raising your consciousness. You can take somebody from ground zero, from level 0 of consciousness to level 10,000 of consciousness within just 30 minutes of doing some LSD or some mushrooms. That's possible, but that's only possible if you're doing them properly with the right protocol, which I've talked about in the past. All right, so the next principle is don't try to change other people. Other people are where they're at, and you trying to change them to be better in a lot of cases is not the most effective thing to do. It's not the best for them. Like I said, that would be like, the reason why is because you don't realize that other people go through their stages of growth. So someone was asking me, hey, some of my relatives, they're addicted to video games, right? They're younger boys, right? All they do is play video games all day and stay up late and eat junk food. Can you make a video about meditation and tell them that, they need to meditate? Well, the thing is that maybe they don't need to meditate right now. If they're a 12-year-old boy, maybe what they need to do right now is to experience junk food, staying up late, and playing video games. Maybe that's actually what's the best for their personal growth. That was the best for me when I was 13 or 14. That's all I was doing. Then when I got to the point where I was actually sick of it, where I actually realized for myself, oh, I don't want to play video games all day. When I actually realized that for myself, that's when I started learning about meditation and personal development on my own. I didn't, like, if I was 13 and I'm playing Dark Souls on my computer and my mom came in, opened my door, turned off my computer and says, go meditate, right? That's not going to do anything for me. That's going to make me angry. All right? So don't worry about other people, right? I made a video called How to Deal with Unconscious People. Don't worry about other people's growth. First and foremost, make sure you're actually embodying the wisdom and compassion that's necessary on the spiritual path. That might take you 40 years, okay? And then once you do that, then you can start worrying about other people's growth. I'm not saying you need to wait 40 years. I'm just saying only help people who ask you for help. Don't try and enforce help on other people. It's like that vegan who goes vegan for the first time and then tries to convert all the other people to being vegan. Right? When they see their dad eating a steak for lunch, and then the classic, the 15-year-old daughter's like, Dad, don't you know that steak was, killed, that cow was killed, and it's so evil, the meat industry. Your dad doesn't fucking care. Your dad just wants to eat a steak. He's not there at stage green yet. He's still at stage orange. Let him do his thing. Don't worry about it. Okay, just do your thing, and don't worry about other people. Don't try to change other people unless they ask. Right? If they ask, that then obviously give them advice. So we talked a little bit about paradigm shifts already. Don't assume that you already got reality figured out, right? Your worldview has been absorbed from an unconscious culture. Our culture today, metaphysically, even scientifically, we're still in the dark ages. We don't understand reality. We think we do. We don't. Not at all. Not even close. So your worldview, you think reality is made of solid material objects. It's not. It's made of God's consciousness. But me saying that, I sound like some religious nutcase saying that. But I'm not. I'm actually speaking from, a higher stage of consciousness. Not that I'm, up here sitting on the mountaintop, but I've glimpsed the true nature of reality, and it's nowhere near what society is at. We're still on level orange, stage orange in development. It might take 500 years before we start talking about awakening and enlightenment as like a real thing that, everyone, it's taught in school, right? So don't assume that your paradigm is advanced, because most of it has just been absorbed from society, which is full of shit anyways. So don't underestimate the power of a paradigm shift. Sometimes you're living your life, you think you know everything, but then you come across some piece of content or some book, you read it, and it just recontextualizes everything. Puts it in a completely new framework. And you're still looking at the same trees, but now it's from a new framework. So imagine you're walking in the forest and you're looking at all these trees, right? You think, they're real. You're looking at trees, but then someone walks by you and tells you that you're dreaming. Hey, you're in a dream. And then you realize, you go lucid. You're like, fuck, I am dreaming, right? Maybe you're dreaming at night. And then you look around and there's still trees, but what the trees are is radically different. There's been a recontextualization. Now, the trees, you realize they're actually consciousness. They're not trees, they're your mind. See? The way the trees look hasn't changed. They're still green. They still have bark. But what they are has changed. So don't underestimate that power of recontextualization. The next principle is to balance theory and practice. We've talked about this a bit. You need to learn something and then implement it. Learn something and then implement it. When you first start off your personal development journey, you need to learn a lot of theory. You need to spend probably a few years just reading books and listening to teachers and studying theory. And I'm talking about self-actualization, becoming the best version of yourself, living an excellent life. You need to build your intellectual foundation. And then you also need to implement some of the practices, right? It is possible to overdo the theory, and it's also possible to overdo the practice without having the right theory, right? A lot of people say, oh, I've been practicing meditation for a few years, but, it's not really working for me. Yeah, but how many books about meditation have you read? Have you been on a retreat? Have you talked to masters? No. Well, how do you know you've been meditating right? You could have been doing 3 years of wrong practice. Right? So balance theory and practice. The next principle also is to balance work and rest. Right? Sometimes time to work, other times time to rest. Both are important. Otherwise you become a workaholic or you become a lazy bum. Right? There's a sweet spot there. The next principle is to eliminate distractions. So once you discover your life purpose, once you're clear about your goals, then you've basically gotten clear about what is going to make you the most happy, what's going to fulfill your soul deeply. And it's your duty, once you've discovered your deepest values, your top passions, and you've created a plan to align your life towards them, which I talk about in my course, then once you've discovered that, now it's time to eliminate distractions. Because everything else that you do, oh, maybe I should go do a year of university. Maybe I should go hang out with my friends every night. Maybe I should download this new video game. Maybe I should, my phone is filled with all kinds of apps that are distracting. Once you discover your life purpose, the key is to eliminate everything that isn't your life purpose. Because we've discovered what will make you the most happy. So everything that's not that is just distracting you from your own happiness. So distractions are a big issue, especially in our society. We're bombarded with information. You need to clean up your YouTube feed, delete social media apps from your phone, block notifications. Like, you don't want to be distracted. You need to focus. If you want to achieve meaningful results in your life, you need to be able to do deep work, which comes from focus, which Cal Newport talks about in his book, Deep Work. So the most meaningful work comes from a focused state of mind, not from a distracted state of mind. How could I make this video if also at the same time I was on my phone or scrolling on Instagram while I'm making the video? That's impossible. So meaningful work comes when you're focused. The next principle is you become what you think about. And I had a cool story to tell you about this principle. This is a story I read, but 2,000 years ago, there was a man walking on the riverbank, and he actually walked by the Buddha, right? The Buddha was sitting, he was meditating at the riverbank. The man walked by and came up to him and said, "Oh, hey, are you the Buddha? I heard about you. I always wanted to meditate just like you do. I just thought it was so cool, but I just don't know how to do it properly." So the Buddha, as he always was, is very compassionate, very loving, and he taught the man a meditation practice. He said, okay, recite this mantra and go practice for 4 hours per day. The mantra is 6 syllables long. And the man said, okay. He went off, and then the next day he comes back, he was all sad. And he says, "Buddha, I tried to do the mantra, but I just kept getting distracted." The Buddha said, okay, here's a shorter mantra. It's only 2 syllables long. Go run off and practice this one for 4 hours per day. And then the man's all excited. He's like, thanks. He runs off. Next day he comes back. He's all sad again. He says, "Buddha, that mantra didn't work either. I was all distracted. It just wasn't working." And the Buddha said, well, okay. Can you think of something in life that you love the most? And the man says, yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is my prize cow, my prize bull. He's just so beautiful. His horns, his fur. He was a farmer, so he has many different animals, but this cow was the one he loved the most. The Buddha said, okay, what you do when you go to practice is go sit down in a quiet place, close your eyes, and focus your attention and your energy on your prize cow. And the man was all excited. He said, oh, that's going to be easy. I love him so much. So 3 days go by. The Buddha's still meditating at the bank, but he hasn't heard from the man. So he starts to get worried. He's like, where is this guy? He hasn't come talk to me. So he goes and he looks around. He finds a cave near the river, and he hears somebody giggling and laughing inside the cave. He goes, hello, is anyone in there? And the man goes, oh, it's me. And the Buddha goes, oh, good. I thought you were lost. I thought something happened to you. He's like, how's your meditation going? The man says, my meditation is going awesome. I'm having the best time of my life. The Buddha says, great, why don't you come out of the cave and tell me about it? And the man says, I've tried, but I can't get myself out of the cave. My horns won't fit through the door. So this story is kind of long-winded. It has a weird punchline, but basically the moral here is that whatever you meditate on, whatever you focus on, whatever you fill your mind with is what you literally will become. So this man spent 3 days focusing on his cow, right? And he says he can't even get out of the cave because his horns won't fit through the door. This is actually one of the deep principles of Tantra, which is one of the most advanced schools of Buddhism, the Vajrayana tradition from Tibet. One of their main practices is to focus on a deity, to do visualization where you actually embody the deity. You actually literally visualize yourself becoming one with the enlightened deity, and you practice as the enlightened deity. So one of the deity's names is Vajrasattva. He has white skin and long hair, and he's holding a bell. So as you meditate, you actually practice as Vajrasattva. It's not like I'm practicing as Adam, trying to become Vajrasattva, trying to become enlightened. That's what Vajrasattva represents, the enlightenment. Instead, you practice as Vajrasattva. You literally become the enlightened deity. And as you focus on this enlightened deity and you literally become one with it, that's something you actually become. That's why mantra meditation works so well. When you recite a prayer like, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. When you recite that prayer over and over and over again 1,000,000 times, then you will have the serenity to accept things you cannot change, courage to change the things you can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Because what you focus on is what you become. Very, very powerful. Very powerful. All right. The next principle is the principle of compound interest and exponential growth. I'm making a whole other video about this insight, but the more you can invest in yourself early, the more compound interest you'll experience in the future. When you put money in a stock or in an index fund, over time, the interest compounds and your money grows, right? And the earlier you invest your money, the more it grows in the future. It's the same is true with basically every single aspect of life, which I have to make a whole video about. It's a very deep topic. That's why Einstein said the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. Because the sooner you can start investing in your personal development and start solving your basic needs, the more exponentially you're going to grow in the future. If you look at an exponential growth curve, it's slow in the beginning, right? But all of a sudden it just kind of hikes upward, and then it's just like shoots straight up. That's how exponential growth works. And we're going to talk about that more in the future. It's an extremely deep topic. I can't go into it here. The next principle is to just enjoy nature. I don't think you can really live an effective life unless you're enjoying and appreciating the beauty of nature in some way. Talking about what you focus on, you become. If you can focus on the beauty and profundity of Mother Earth, the actual just the amazingness of nature, then you're going to become beautiful and amazing and serene. Right? So nature is just very important. It's something deep in our human biology that resonates with being in natural settings. It's very important for me, and I think for most humans. The next principle of to live an excellent life is to throw your hat over the fence, which is a saying which means to kind of entrap yourself in a positive way. So make a commitment to yourself. Though sometimes where I've done this where I'll pay a coach, $5,000, right? But then what I've done is I've basically thrown my hat over the fence. So I've made a huge investment into this coach, but because I've made such a large investment, that's kind of forcing me to take the action and do the work. So I've actually kind of trapped myself in a positive way. I've thrown my hat over the fence so that the only way to get over the fence is you have to climb and go get your hat. So if there's a giant fence, it's a big obstacle, you can't get over it. How do you get over the fence? Take your hat, throw it over to the other side, so now you have no choice but to get over that fence. Great way to do that is by going on a meditation retreat, right? If you book a retreat for yourself, you pay the money, you actually go to the center, now you have no choice but to meditate. Okay. The next principle is to remember your death. Memento mori. Remember that you're going to die. Life is flying by before your eyes. It's a fleeting phenomenon, and you're getting older by the second. And just remember that, because remembering your death tempers your mind and helps you remember what's important. If you only had a few weeks left to live, what would you create? What would you share? What kind of gift would you give? If you only had 3 days left to live, would you just play video games all day? No. You would make something of yourself. You'd do something meaningful that's important to you. You'd want to leave some kind of legacy behind. So remember your death. The next principle is to follow your inspiration. Follow your heart, because your heart is actually almost like an antenna that receives signals from universal intelligence. Universal intelligence sends you signals for what to do in your life in the form of inspiration. If you feel really excited and good about something, that means you should probably do it. Because infinite intelligence is giving you guidance. The next principle is that controlling and manipulating other people, or yourself, or life in general rarely works. You don't need to force yourself to do anything. You only need to allow yourself to do it. So don't force your life to go a certain way. If you're forcing something, that implies that it's not natural. It doesn't want to go in that direction. This is power versus force. Power is making the decision where you want your life to go and trusting that your life's gonna go that way just because you've decided. Force is implying that you're weak, that I don't have power. So I'm afraid, I'm insecure. I have to force and manipulate reality to go my way. Rarely works. The next principle is do one thing at a time. If you do too many things at a time, it's not going to work. The man who reads while he eats enjoys neither. So focus on one thing at a time, and you'll actually notice that each thing that you do, you actually get better results with. If you're implementing a meditation habit, just implement that one habit. Don't try and implement every single habit. Don't do journaling. eating healthy, exercise, meditation, all this stuff all at once, you're going to get overwhelmed and you're going to burn out. So one thing at a time. The next principle is to fill up your cup and share it publicly. Fill yourself with inspiration, with good personal development, and then share it publicly through some kind of art form. Arnold Schwarzenegger said his manifesto for living a great life is to work your ass off and to advertise. And I had to include that principle here. That's exactly what I'm saying. Fill up your cup, work your ass off, be the best version of yourself, and share it publicly. Advertise. The next principle is that life is a dream. Life is a literal dream, meaning that it's actually made of consciousness. It's not physical. It only appears physical in the same way when you walk into a wall in your dream, you still hit your head, but that doesn't mean the wall is physical or that your head is physical. All it means is that you imagined in your dream that it's physical. So life is a dream, but that doesn't mean it's not real. It's a real dream. So it's a dream, but it's a real dream. See the difference there? The next principle is to unhook from external validation. Not requiring other people to approve of you or needing someone else to give you the thumbs up before you make a video or worrying so much what other people are going to think of me. Unhook from external validation. Do things from an internally grounded place. Don't rely on other people to make you feel good or other things. It could be even substances like ice cream or drugs or porn. Don't rely on other things to make you feel good. You need to feel good internally by becoming established in the practice of meditation. All right, the next principle for living an excellent life, number 44, is nobody is 100% wrong. Understand that every single person on earth, regardless of how deluded or crazy they might seem, nobody is 100% wrong. Every single person has some kind of kernel of truth within their worldview. And it's your job to find that kernel of truth. So even some of the most deluded, crazy people, like maybe, for example, you think that Trump supporters are deluded and crazy, even after years of Trump publicly demonstrating that he's an incompetent leader on almost every front, still he has followers, right? You might think on the surface, oh, these people are crazy. But understand that nobody is 100% wrong. There's still some kind of value, something there, some reason why they still follow Trump. Maybe Trump represents some value, some form of strength or freedom that's important to them. And that they're still partially right in the sense where they value freedom, they value patriotism, they value their country. There's nothing wrong with that. These people aren't crazy. Yeah, sure, maybe they are not, following the best leader, but it doesn't mean they're 100% wrong. They might be 98% wrong, but they're still 2% right. And your job is to find the kernel of truth in those perspectives that most people would think are just crazy and deluded. If you can learn from any perspective, even if it's a crazy one that you might think is insane, but you can still learn lessons from that perspective, then you're going to develop a very robust and complex understanding of reality, and you're going to be able to live a much more effective life. Ken Wilber, in his integral theory, has said that the key realization that tier 2 or stage yellow, stage turquoise has, as you're moving up the developmental stages, the key insight is realizing that nobody is 100% wrong. How can we find the kernels of every single perspective and kind of weave them together into an overarching picture, to a meta model or a meta worldview? All right, the next principle is that good and evil don't exist. There's no such thing as something that's good or something that's evil in a vacuum. Good and evil are relative to your selfish ego. What you think is good, another person might think is bad, right? You might think Donald Trump is bad, but another person thinks Donald Trump is good. Is that because that other person is retarded? Not really. It's because good and evil are relative, right? It doesn't mean, so people get scared when they hear this idea that good and evil are relative. So Adam, if good and evil are relative, how do I know what to do, right? Are you saying murderers aren't evil? Are you saying rapists and criminals aren't evil? What, are you trying to support murder? Adam, come on. You're losing your credibility here. See, no, good and evil only exist in a vacuum. I'm sorry, do not exist in a vacuum. They only exist relative to a separate ego, right? To a fox, to a rabbit, foxes are evil because they eat them, right? But to another fox, foxes aren't evil. So it really depends on where you're standing. Good and evil changes based on where you're standing. There's no such thing as absolute good or absolute evil. It's relative, and the real question to ask is what action or what perspective is the most effective for maximizing the common good for the most amount of people, and also for the most important people. But that's like a really technical point I don't want to get into right now. But the good and evil don't exist. The real question is understanding how life works deeply from a non-biased perspective, much more effective than just judging and chopping reality up into two sides, good on this side, evil on this side. It's not necessary. It is necessary when you're in stage blue and you're still trying to create order in society, but after, your society develops past that basic stage, then realize good and evil don't exist. It's relative. It's based on where you stand. The next principle is to never settle for less than what you want. So if you want a specific job position, don't settle for some other job at a different company that you don't like. If you want a specific relationship partner, don't settle for someone that's less than you feel like you deserve. Because if you settle for less, you'll never get what you actually want, and you'll never be happy. Because you're literally saying, this is what will make me happy, this specific girlfriend is what will make me happy, but I'm going to settle for less. Effectively, what you're saying is, I'm never going to be happy. This has to do with a worthiness thing. Affirm to yourself that you are worthy of getting what you want. And if you don't feel like you're good enough for that specific job position or for that specific girlfriend, how can you get good enough? How can you take responsibility to build yourself into a better version of yourself that does deserve that thing that you want? Don't settle for less than what you want. It's like when you're going house shopping, right? And the first house you look at, you say, oh, this house is not the perfect one, but I guess we'll just live here, whatever, right? Instead of actually going around looking at all the houses and not settling for less than what you want, because then for the rest of your life, you're going to live in a house that you're not totally in love with. All right. The next principle for living an amazing life is to build your infrastructure for success. So what this means is that your actual house, your living area, how can you set it up in a way so that it promotes your life purpose, it promotes your personal development, so that you don't have to fight against your environment, but your environment's actually working with you. It's on your team. You set it up to be that way. So as a simple example, if you don't want to watch TV all day, don't have a TV in your house. If you want to be more effective and less distracted when you work, get rid of all the cluttered icons on your desktop. Organize your computer. This is building your infrastructure. What are some other examples? So for me, right, I need to read a lot of books in order to execute on my life purpose. So I have books around. I have tons of books. I also need to take a lot of notes, right? So I have pens lying around my house. I have journals and notebooks just sitting around near my bed. My life, my house is organized to help me succeed. Not that I have to fight against it. My meditation cushion's already set up. All I have to do is just go sit down on it. It's easy, right? So build your infrastructure to make healthy actions easy and unhealthy actions difficult. So if I want to watch TV, what I have to do is I have to probably go on my computer to watch it, right? So it's harder than just turning on the TV. All right, so the next principle for living an excellent life is realizing that mysticism is the ultimate truth. Mysticism. Mysticism is basically a branch of any religion has some kind of mystical branch that is the actual truth of that religion. So, for example, many people they're very adamant Christians, but they think that Christian mysticism, like Meister Eckhart or like Marguerite Porete, these Christian mystics, they think that they're the deluded ones. They're heretics. They don't, study the Bible enough. But when you actually study and you're actually interested in the truth, you realize that the mystics, like Meister Eckhart, who don't really follow the traditional path, but they're actually genuinely interested in discovering the truth in their direct experience. Meister Eckhart wanted to discover God for himself, to become one with God, to realize God in his experience. Not to read it in a book and go to church. He wanted to actually become the Messiah. He wanted to become like Jesus, to realize that he is the Son of God, right? That's what the mystical traditions do. The mystical traditions like Kabbalah for Judaism, or Sufism for Islam, or Christian mysticism for Christianity, or Advaita Vedanta for Hinduism, right? Or maybe even Zen for Buddhism, right? These mystical traditions, they're actually the more hardcore version of the spiritual truth, or the spiritual system. The mystical tradition is actually the one that is hardcore and genuinely cares about discovering the truth. So when you study mysticism, you're really studying the most hardcore sages and mystics that actually care about discovering the nature of reality. They actually care about it. They're not just following the rules, just following tradition. They actually want the truth. So when you study their writings, you're getting a lot closer to the truth than you'll believe. So mysticism is the ultimate truth, in a lot of cases even more so than science, because mysticism is really the study of experience, right? A lot of mystics are scientifically minded. They just want to study reality directly, right? So if we can blend science and mysticism together, that would be like the ultimate truth. All right. The next principle is that neediness is repulsive. Right? In general, whenever you're needy, you're in an egotistical state of mind. You're coming from a place of lack. You feel like what you have now isn't good enough. You're not grateful for what you currently have. You're needy. You need something else to be happy. You're dependent on external validation. That's repulsive. You're in an egotistical state of mind. People don't want to hang out around needy people. They want to hang around people who are already grateful and who are already succeeding. The next principle is that life is counterintuitive, which means that it isn't what you normally would think it is. So if you want to succeed in business, you would think it's like, oh, I just need to market really hard. I just need to like, go really, really hard on I need to cut deals. I need to push my content in everyone's faces so that everyone sees. But counterintuitively, when you market, don't be overly markety about it, overly, grifty, or too much in other people's faces. It's kind of better to do marketing that's a little bit reserved, a little bit more natural, not just like in your face, buy now or else, the whole world's gonna end, hurry up, right? Counterintuitively, the less you try for your marketing, but you still do it in a smart way, the more people will actually think like, oh, this guy's not needy, right? He doesn't need me to buy his product. He must have a lot of customers because he actually has a good product, right? There's a whole episode I'm gonna need to make about how life is counterintuitive. It's the opposite of what you think it would be. Normally, you'd think that, science, society has already discovered all of the answers. But counterintuitively, when you actually go into it, you realize that science is deeply diluted in a lot of ways, and that many of the answers are still hidden, even though they're in books and mystical traditions, but for many of the answers are still hidden. The next principle is that society is underdeveloped. So I've talked about this a bit. We're still in the dark ages. Then the next principle is to avoid ideology at all costs. Don't get sucked into one way of thinking. And the tricky thing about ideologies is that when you're in an ideology, you don't realize that you're in an ideology. You think that you've discovered the truth. Like QAnon, for example, it's a very negative ideology, but they tell themselves, we're the truth seekers, right? Even though nothing we do is grounded in scientific evidence at all, and even when it is, it's doctored evidence, right? But ideologies justify themselves to themselves. So just be very careful about believing in things and becoming zealous, which means like you're very attached and you want to go convert other people, right? Be careful about ideologies. And that's one thing that'll definitely ruin your life, being ideological, being, when you're ideological, you're just married to your belief and you're not willing to question it. And that's when you fall into epistemic traps. Number 54, so we're almost done, is everything is working itself out. So this is a very true principle that the universe is working itself out. People who say that, everything's going to shit, the reality's ending, the apocalypse is coming. Nope, that's not true. When you actually raise your consciousness and you realize what actually is going on in reality, you look deeper at the structural level, not at the surface, but deeper at the psychological level, the structural level, the existential level, you realize that reality is working itself out. Everything is working out best case scenario. It might seem like we're going backwards, like, oh, Putin's invading Ukraine. That's, we're going backwards, right? No, we're not going backwards. Sometimes that is actually how it looks to go forwards. But the problem is you haven't zoomed out enough. Sometimes in your life, when you spend a whole week addicted to video games and smoking weed, sometimes that's the very thing that actually pushes you to grow as a person and to quit video games forever. Sometimes once I would play League of Legends so much that I'd get sick of it, that I quit it forever. Now I don't play it anymore. So in the moment, it seemed like my life was going backwards. But sometimes you actually need to suffer in order to go forwards, right? So I don't know what's going to happen with this thing, in Ukraine. Obviously, it's terrible. But if you zoom out far enough, something positive is going to come out of it. And we're going to learn some type of lesson from it. And it's actually going to slingshot us forward as a species, slowly and gradually. Everything works itself out and moves towards higher levels of consciousness, wholeness, integration, and love. And the last principle for living an amazing life is realizing that you're already in heaven, but you're too selfish to see it. You're already in heaven, but you're too selfish to see it. You're too conceited. You're too arrogant. You think, Adam, I'm not in heaven. What are you talking about? Reality's dark and cold and difficult and bitter. How can this be heaven? There's wars in another country. People are dying. You're telling me this is heaven? People are starving in Africa. The last principle is that you're already in heaven, but you're too selfish to see it. Which means that you're too biased. You're not zoomed out far enough. You're not objective enough with your analysis. You're too emotionally attached to your perspective. You don't realize that this is heaven. This is the best possible way that reality could have been designed. This is the way it is. God is an infinite, unlimited intelligence. Do you think that it would design a flawed reality? So maybe infinite intelligence is an unlimited potential is flawed, or maybe the way you're looking at the situation with your limited ego mind is flawed. Right? So you're already in heaven, but what prevents you from realizing this is that you're criticizing heaven. You're too biased. You think, oh, heaven should be like this. If I was really in heaven, there wouldn't be people, homeless on the street. If I was really in heaven, there wouldn't be disease or war. Yeah, of course, because you're a selfish ego, because you don't like disease and war. But from the perspective of the omnipotent creator who has no form and no selfish bias or attachment, all forms are good. This is heaven. And the question is, are you going to be selfless enough to give up enough attachment to be able to see it? Because when you do, then you'll be in heaven. And it's awesome. All right, guys, those were the 55 core principles for living an excellent life. Obviously, it takes an entire lifetime to embody these principles. Obviously, this isn't a be-all, end-all list. This is just the most comprehensive list that I could think of right now. Perhaps in the future, I'll add to this list. Perhaps I've missed some things. But overall, this is a pretty robust and advanced explanation of the actual way to live an amazing life. And this came to me from studying hundreds of different perspectives. So I didn't just make this stuff up. That you'll actually find all of these principles will be validated as you go study some of the most acclaimed teachers and masters. You'll find that they actually agree with what I'm saying. And the reason why they agree is because I've studied their work and I've triangulated the truth and distilled the principles for myself. And it's not enough just to listen to me or trust me or believe me, but actually you need to do this with this process for yourself. How can you discover the core principles for living an excellent life? You can use my list as a guideline, and in the future, all of these topics that we just briefly glanced over today, a lot of these topics I'm going to be going a lot deeper into in my future videos. And in my past videos, I've already covered some of these topics. And this is really what we're talking about here on this channel. I want to help you live an excellent life, a principle-centered life that is actually in alignment with the structure of reality. Stephen Covey said there was an old saying, you can't break the laws of reality. You can only break yourself against them. So the principles, the laws of reality, they function. They function naturally. It has to do with the structure of reality itself. You can't break the law, but you can break yourself against the law by not understanding it. So hopefully this video helped to illuminate some of the deep laws and the structure of reality. And this is what I like to talk about. This is what we're going to talk about a lot more in the coming episodes. So stay tuned. If you want to discover your life purpose, then you can check out my mini course I have about discovering your life purpose. In the future, I'm actually releasing a super in-depth coaching program where we're going to go a lot more in-depth about discovering your life purpose, letting go of the blocks that are holding you back, and also raising your awareness and your connection to reality. All these things are connected, and I'm going to be making a comprehensive coaching program to help you become that self-actualized version of yourself. All right? So I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the next one, and that's it.